The observation deck of the Galactic Council station hummed with the anxious chatter of a dozen species. Ambassador Thexler of the Viridian Collective watched through the reinforced viewing panel as the human woman entered the containment habitat below. His crest feathers flattened against his skull, a reflexive gesture of concern that had become habitual whenever humans were involved. "This is madness," he muttered to his aide. "Those are Kreth cubs. Kreth. Their bite force can shear through titanium alloys." The human Vera seemed utterly unconcerned. She wore standard diplomatic attire, a simple gray uniform with ceremonial arm guards that gleamed under the habitat's artificial sun. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and she carried no visible weapons. The Galactic Council had insisted on that much, at least. Vera stepped onto the rust-colored soil of the habitat, designed to mimic the homeworld of the Kreth. Within seconds, the cubs emerged from their den, 5 of them, each the size of an earth wolf, with obsidian scales that rippled like liquid shadow, and eyes that glowed with predatory intelligence. Their mother had been killed in a territorial dispute, and the cubs had rejected every caretaker the council had provided. 3 xenobiologists were still in medical reconstruction after their attempts. The cubs circled Vera, their talons clicking against stone. The largest, a male the handlers had designated Core, approached first, his lips pulling back to reveal rows of crystalline teeth that could tear through combat armor. Thexler's translator picked up the low growl rumbling from Core's chest, a sound that made even the battle-hardened security personnel on the observation deck shift nervously. Vera knelt slowly, bringing herself to eye level with the cubs. She extended her left arm, the armored guard catching the light. "Go ahead," she said quietly, her voice steady. "I know you're scared. I know you're angry," Core lunged. His jaws clamped down on the arm guard with a force that registered on the habitat's sensors. Enough pressure to crush bone, to dent starship hull plating. The metal screamed in protest. Around the observation deck, several ambassadors gasped. One of the smaller species fainted outright. Vera didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. Instead, she slowly, deliberately began to lift her arm. Core's eyes widened, if such a gesture could be attributed to a Kreth. He bit harder, his entire body tensing as he tried to force the arm down through sheer predatory instinct. But Vera continued lifting, her muscles flexing beneath her uniform. The other cubs watched, fascinated, as their brother was raised into the air, still clinging stubbornly to the arm guard. "Stubborn little thing, aren't you?" Vara's lips curved into the smallest smile. When her arm reached shoulder height, Core made a decision that would later be analyzed by xenobiologists across the galaxy. Instead of releasing his grip and retreating, the cub scrambled upward, his claws finding purchase on Vera's uniform. In 3 quick movements, he hauled himself onto the top of the raised arm guard and perched there, his tail wrapping around her wrist for balance. He sat like a champion atop a conquered mountain, his chest puffing out, a strange chirping sound emerging from his throat. The observation deck fell silent. "Did that cub just—" Thexlar's voice trailed off, his translator struggling to process what he was witnessing. Vera stood completely still, her arm steady as stone despite supporting the weight of a 40-kilogram predator. Core looked down at his siblings and made that chirping sound again, unmistakably a call of triumph. One by one, the other cubs approached. They sniffed at Vara's boots, her legs, her free hand. When she slowly extended her right arm, 2 of the smaller cubs began to climb, using her as a living tree. "In all my years," whispered Dr. Shentok, the council's chief xenobiologist, "I have never seen Kreth cubs accept a non-Kreth as anything other than threat or prey." Vera began to walk, her movements careful and measured. The cubs adjusted their positions, Core maintaining his proud perch on her raised arm. She made a slow circuit of the habitat, and the cubs followed, those on the ground padding alongside, those clinging to her arms rumbling with something that almost sounded like contentment. "How is she doing this?" Thexler demanded. "What human trick—" "It's not a trick." The voice came from Commander Zhang, the human military observer who had been standing quietly in the corner. "She's doing exactly what we do with frightened animals on Earth. She's showing them that she's not afraid, that she's strong enough to protect them, and that she won't abandon them even when they try to hurt her. But the Kreth are apex predators," Thexler protested. "They're not domesticated creatures." Zhang smiled grimly. Neither were wolves once. Neither were tigers or bears or any of the other predators humans have worked with throughout our history. We've always had this understanding with the dangerous things in the universe. Maybe because we used to be the dangerous things. In the habitat below, Vera finally lowered her arms. Cor jumped down gracefully, landing beside his siblings. But instead of retreating to the den, the cubs gathered around her. When she sat cross-legged on the ground, they pressed close, their scaled bodies radiating heat. Cor positioned himself directly in front of her, his glowing eyes fixed on the viewing panel above, as if daring anyone to threaten his new pack member. Vara reached out slowly and placed a hand on Cor's head. His eyes closed and that strange purring chirp filled the habitat again. "The cubs have accepted her," Dr. Shentok said, his voice filled with wonder. "In Kreth culture, this is unprecedented. She's effectively become their pride mother." Thexler watched as Vera sat surrounded by the 5 deadliest juvenile predators in this sector of space, creatures that had terrorized trained handlers and rejected every form of care the Council had offered. She sat with them as if it were the most natural thing in the universe, her damaged arm guard a badge of honor rather than a scar of attack. "Humans?" Thexlar muttered, shaking his head. Of course it would be a human. Below, Cor climbed back onto Vera's arm, resuming his trophy position, and she laughed, a warm, genuine sound that somehow carried through the reinforced glass and filled the observation deck with an emotion the assembled species could only identify as hope.